Young people feel let down. They feel they've been lied to about the American dream. They are struggling as they leave college and settle into adult life. They're looking for politicians who they think make the best case for making their lives better and more affordable. That is why Donald Trump was elected and supported by so many young people in 2024. Ironically, that is also a big reason that young people fell for Mamdani's socialist quote-unquote utopia with free everything. And it's also why they fall for the promises of so many other leftist politicians like him. The issue of things being unaffordable is real. We all feel it. The solution is not charismatic politicians who promise everything but deliver nothing. The fix, what we really need, now more than ever, is free market conservative policies. That is the only hope of fixing the issues that Gen Z and Americans as a whole care the most about. In the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you why we need to embrace conservative policies and why we need to reject leftist socialist policies. The conservative position will create a better life for you and the country as a whole. Hello and welcome to Restoring America with Grace Riley. I'm so glad that you've joined us. Today we are going to build on what we've been talking about the last few weeks. So if you like this episode, make sure to go check out the last few if you haven't already, because they complement this one well. Also, make sure to like, comment, rate the podcast, subscribe, and share it if you're enjoying the show so that we can grow. All right, let's get right into it. So, do young people really support socialism? Do all of the young people who say they support it really understand what it is and what the history is? I would argue that the answer is no. My next question, do young people really know what conservatism is or what conservatives want for the country? That's also a no. And I would add that if they get their news from liberal sources, and they likely do, they have been fed a distorted version of conservatism. This is important because if more people knew the truth and knew why conservative ideas work and socialist ideas don't, I doubt people would vote for socialism. Young people feel lied to because we were told, go to college, work hard, do well, then you'll get a job, be comfortable financially, get a house, have a family, and live happily ever after in the American dream. We thought we'd be able to do what our parents and grandparents did, to get that house, to have a family. No problem, just the normal thing to do. Now, not only is that not possible for many young people, but the age at which it becomes possible is increasing. As a young person myself, this is very sad, and I feel it and see it all around me, especially as someone who right now isn't married yet, but would like to get married soon, have a family, eventually have the possibility of having a house. It definitely, as a young person, feels very overwhelming and not like what I expected after watching my parents and grandparents be able to, make the choices to be young, have a family, get a house, all of those things. But today, the median age for first-time home buyers is at a record high of nearly 40 years old. 40 years old. In 1960, the median age was about 23 years old. Crazy. It's a crazy difference. And when we think about what that means for when people are getting married, having kids, it makes it even worse to think about. And it's definitely something that's a factor, I would argue, in pushing those things back too. So let's look at that. The same pattern exists when you look at marriage. In the 1950s, the median age was around 20 years old. Now it has jumped to 30. In both cases, record highs for major milestones that are being achieved much later in life. We know that college prices have increased, but the extent will probably shock you, just looking at this alongside marriage and housing rates being pushed back. Looking at 1971 to today, so the change over about the past 50 years or so, the average cost for college used to be between $1,400 and $2,900 a year. So $1,000 to $3,000 or so a year. Now, the average cost is $25,000 a year to about $63,000 a year. Around 70% of students are graduating with debt, and a lot of it. That is a big problem, and it's one that socialists try to take advantage of, but can't actually fix with what they propose. They say they'll forgive this debt, but in reality, taxpayers foot the bill. A big bill of about $1.7 trillion. There are many Republicans who make the argument that it is meaningless degrees, such as majoring in gender studies, for example, that make it difficult to get a job. That's true, of course, but I would argue it is not an accurate interpretation of this problem. It is just a very small part of the very complex situation. There are a lot of young people who do everything right, or at least do everything the way that they were told to. They choose good degree programs that align with solid jobs. They got good grades, went to these so-called good schools, but still many come out with loans and facing housing situation and interest rates that look more like the impossible dream than the American dream. What Americans do not want is temporary fixes instead of solutions. For example, the idea of this 50-year mortgage, while well-intentioned to help people get into the market, is probably the most discouraging policy that young people who are already struggling can hear. It's the promise, essentially, of debt for life and possibly beyond going on to your kids, and absurd amounts paid in interest that can double or triple what was actually supposed to be paid on the home that was already expensive. We need solutions on prices and interest rates. One thing can be to stop allowing companies like BlackRock from buying up all of the single-family homes to inflate prices and profit while they outbid real people, families who want a home. It is a tough issue, but there are different things we'd like to see happen than accepting this bleak future as homeowners. And I'll say, too, that Republicans are in power right now, right? We have the presidency, Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. This is our opportunity to prove that our ideas and policies will actually create better lives for Americans as a whole, but also for young people. Now, obviously, this is complicated. It's not that simple. They don't get to just enact whatever they want. And the problems that they're facing are problems that have been building and building and building for years. We have very deep-rooted issues with our economy, with our country, with the housing market. We have very deep-rooted issues. So it's not like anyone's expecting an easy fix. But what I would say is this is the opportunity, and we need to use it well and take it well to really try to impact change in the most positive way possible. Meanwhile, young American graduates can't find jobs and make up the highest age group of unemployment at 9.2% for 18 to 24-year-olds. This is triple or double the percentages for other age groups, which are around 3 or 4%, just to give you some background there. So the 9% is a significant number. Young people are having a lot of trouble finding jobs out of college and just in general. Now, there are a lot of great things that the Trump administration has done that will work towards the root causes and long-term fixes, which is what we need on these issues. Things like bringing manufacturing and jobs back to the United States, all of the huge trade deals that have been happening, the goal and impact of the tariffs that he's put in place, spending cuts with DOGE, and more. All great things that will help, and that's super significant and important. The Trump administration has done a lot of really good things that are tackling the actual root of a lot of this. But the reality is that Americans haven't been able to feel a tangible change more short term, say in their individual lives, because of the way in which these long-term fixes take time to, help and obviously are still being implemented and really just take time to work in what will be seen as a more tangible, meaningful way for the everyday American. So really good things that are all important, but we still have to consider that Americans really want to see changes in their everyday life, their everyday expenses. And of course, Trump has barely been in office enough to save the world. It's only been 10 months. So that is significant. But what we need to hear from the administration is that they recognize that this is an issue and are working on it. It's not helpful to hear denials of there being a problem or that people feel like they're struggling economically. And I say that again as someone who supports the administration and thinks that they have done a lot of really good things for the economy in different ways, have obviously done a lot of great things beyond that, which is extremely significant foreign policy-wise with securing the border, all great things. But I think that Republicans have got to step up and face this issue more head-on than they're doing right now, quite frankly. Okay, so what is conservatism and why will it make your life, your community, and your country better. I'm going to give you 3 key reasons, but I'll start by defining it. Conservatism is not just a political philosophy. It's much more. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of viewing the world and a way of living, understanding that the point of life is faith in the family and that government should protect, not interfere with those things. We want a society where men are free to pursue happiness in faith, in their families, and in work, to create good lives for themselves and for their families. The purpose of conservatism is to preserve time-tested values that make all of this possible. Russell Kirk, who's one of the fathers of conservatism, called this, quote-unquote, preserving the enduring moral order. And he expanded on this and explained a core belief of conservatives at a different point in time, where he said, at heart, political problems are moral and religious problems. Conservatism is grounded in permanent things, on truth. There are certain abiding truths that govern the conduct of human society, whether you think there are or not. That's how our laws were derived. That's how we get our idea of wrong and right when it comes to the law and justice, and something that's commonly said to describe this view of the law, and which applies very heavily to our country and how it was founded, and what the founding fathers thought, is that men and nations are governed by moral law, and the wisdom contained in these laws is derived from divine justice. It is our duty and obligation to future generations to maintain and preserve all of this. Now, for the 3 ways that this will make your life better, number 1, more money in your pocket and hope for the future. The free market is the way to wealth and human flourishing. It is the way for people to actually be lifted out of poverty in a tangible way. It allows for a permanent fix to something that government benefits are a temporary band-aid on. Free market capitalism allows businesses and creative people to meet demands and wants of society with the supplies that they need, the supply that society is asking for and wanting. It allows them to create more jobs, compete with each other in product and price to be better and higher quality, and it overall benefits the American people as a whole. An interesting fact, too, is that the term capitalism was originally pushed by Marxists as a smear. It ultimately means, though, to have private property and use it without outside interference, freedom to work without the government being too involved, freedom to choose jobs and products without the government messing that up. Things like Starbucks, your iPhone, and pretty much everything you enjoy is the result of the free market allowing creativity and innovation. Socialists think that capitalism is evil and prefer more government involvement in property and the economy. They want central planning, which does not work, by the way. It's been tested all over the place. Central planning does not work, and that's something worth looking into if you want to learn more about this. Socialism kills innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit. They say as socialists that they want equality. That's even more nowadays being used as a common phrase defining socialism. But the reality is that equality doesn't turn out in the way that you think. They think that if someone makes more money, they should be taxed to allow for more equality to even things out. Question I have, should a surgeon make the same amount of money as a barista? To summarize, socialism champions equality of outcome, and the free market champions equal opportunity. When socialists focus on equality of outcome, that the barista and surgeon have more similar outcomes financially, it eliminates the opportunity to advance or create a better life for oneself. There becomes no point in pursuing the most valued jobs in our society because the government does not allow you to keep your money. It traps everyone at the same level of poverty rather than allowing growth. When equal opportunity is prioritized, though, in a capitalist society where we have the freedom to choose whatever jobs we want, we have competitive salaries, the ability to work hard and advance in society, that is the American dream. Socialism creates the scenario for the impossible dream that so many of us are facing across the country. Number 2, conservatism advocates for the things that provide true fulfillment in life. The family, marriage, faith. We focus on what really matters, values and lifestyle, the idea of getting married and having kids and why that leads to more happiness. And this is proven, by the way. Married women are far more likely to identify as very happy compared to single women. There's a bunch of studies showing that. You can look into it. But across the board, it's been proven that married women are happier, married people are happier than people who choose to abstain from marriage in pursuit of things like career or the self, whatever it may be. But both young men and women, especially women, were told to have fun, focus on building a career, sleep around, and put off having a family to live in this expressive, individualist, feminist dream. It's something that our culture tells and perpetuates onto young people all the time. This, though, is another big lie. I think a lie that some people are waking up to and being very upset about. But feminism does not satisfy. And as I said, statistics and evidence shows that. It really does. It is a lie that I hope women especially will open their eyes to before it's too late. Because, of course, for women and men, but for having a family, you only have a certain time slot where you can have kids. So it is important to get married when you're at a certain age. And that's being pushed back later and later and later. Lastly, point 3 is that conservatives advocate for more freedom and autonomy. Smaller government, less taxes, less regulation. The conservative focus is on individual freedom, personal responsibility, and order. We recognize that the government ruins everything it touches. Imagine everything being run like the DMV. Think of what a nightmare it already is to pay your taxes. The government being limited, smaller, and less involved puts more power in the hands of the people. Socialists advocate against all 3 of these key things. They advocate for government to control the economy more, for central planning and more government hand in the economy, which means, more taxes, more control of everything, really, which, again, does not work and has failed across the world and does not work where it happens in the United States, has created a lot of problems the more that the government has leaned this way in economic policy, whether that's federally, whether that's in different states and cities. We can see the evidence of that not being effective whenever we lean more to the left in this way. They also want to abolish the family. We see this in a lot of different ways. First of all, just in the Communist Manifesto, but also beyond that. So if we're not putting everyone in the radical Marxist camp, we see examples of this in the very secular culture that encourages people not to get married, that encourages people to, again, embrace this expressive individualism, to lean away from the faith, to lean away from the family, and just encouraging the family to break down in a variety of ways. And further beyond all of this, for point 3, they think that the government should be more involved in everything. We just heard Mamdani, and we talked about this in the last episode, talk about how there's no problem the government can't fix. That's the philosophy, that is, and that's the problem. Because, of course, government is the problem and creates all of the problems and thinks they can fix them, but instead make them worse. And that's what we see throughout history. The core of the positions that we hear from Democrats and Republicans every day matters. What kind of country do you want to live in? The one that our founders established, that was grounded in eternal truths and these conservative principles, free market principles? Or one that tries out socialist ideas that have destroyed and collapsed societies everywhere they've been tried? And also, I'll add on that, one that pushes such a secular culture that just shifts us further and further away from God, away from prioritizing family, when faith and family are the bedrock of American society. That's the core of everything, because yes, at heart, political problems are moral and religious problems. Everything starts at home. Everything starts in the family with faith. It's the root of so much. So which country do you want to live in? Because that's what we're faced with now. So what do Republicans have to do to win? Well, to start, as I said before, we're in power right now, and we need to show people, this is a chance to show people why they should keep voting this way, just on a very basic level. That's important. What can we do to make people's lives better, and why should they keep voting this way? What fixes and solutions can we provide? We need solutions, not temporary relief. Overall, President Trump has done an excellent job trying to do this, as I said before. Trade deals, tariffs, spending cuts with Doge, and more. All those things working towards the root cause. It's all very, very good. But of course, as I said too, they haven't necessarily been felt in the short term. And I think that a key issue that Republicans should focus on is housing and is, the economy and what that's meaning and trickling on to other aspects of life. Because the housing problem, for example, trickles on to the marriage problem. It does. It pushes people to get married later because they want to have a house first, all sorts of things. It's just all connected, and it's very important to recognize and that we're caring about these really real issues that impact Americans every single day. Again, he's only been in office for 10 months, but we've seen things like gas prices go down, and I think the 50-year idea had good intentions, but I think that he should be stating things that he's done positively for the economy and saying that he's doing more to work on those things. And I think that that's an effective strategy that all Republicans should do. Instead of debating whether there's a problem with people feeling like they're struggling financially, we should be working in every way possible to make things better. Gen Z does not want to be saddled with debt that they can never pay off for the rest of their lives. Gen Z definitely does not want 50-year mortgages. We need to communicate why our ideas are better every single time these issues come up. Every time there's debates between Democrats, Republicans, free things or not, Mamdani, or whatever it might be. Every time these key issues come up, we need to be better about taking control of the conversation, and we need to be better about explaining why the principles that our policies are founded on are tried and true and will make everyone's lives better in America, and will lift people out of poverty, will help the economy as a whole, and help our country flourish as a whole and impact real change in people's lives. We need to go back to the basics, and we need to take control of the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Restoring America. Be sure to subscribe, like, and leave us 5 stars to help support the show and so that you can keep up to date on each episode. You can find us on all social media platforms at the handles listed on the screen. This show is powered by the amazing Restoration of America. Be sure to go to restorationofamerica.com for much more, and I will see you next time.